Are you looking for a character that is morally gray and willing to do some very heinous things potentially to achieve what he wants? Then this series, Max Level Newbie, might be just for you. So this is a new series that I recently found with just diving into different stories and all that, trying to see what I could find that would interest me, and I came upon this series. And at this time, there's currently only 4 chapters out, chapter 0 through chapter 3, so it's really not that hard to catch up. You can probably catch up with the series about maybe 15-20 minutes, maybe a lot sooner than that, depending on how fast of a reader you are, or depending on if you just want to read it again, it might take a little bit longer. But the point, though, is that I'm the Max Level Newbie is a series that definitely has a different MC, because when we look at the grand scope of, like, series like this, for instance, like virtual reality to the real world to, oh, I've been reincarnated, like in a isekai, when it comes to these type of themes, these type of stories and all that, usually you have characters that are more on the side of the goody two-shoes. Yes, they're willing to do some things to achieve their goals, but overall, the characters never necessarily harm people or draw first blood within a story. That is not something you typically get when you look at, let's say, an isekai or something. But in reality, that is exactly what happened when this story began. So let's just dive headfirst into it, the main male character of Max Level Newbie. So the MC, as an individual, was someone that is a hardcore gamer, someone that has been playing games for a very long time, and he's been playing this game called Tower of Trials, which in the world of Max Level Newbie, it is a game that was very popular when it first came out, but dwindled in popularity because it was incredibly hard. Basically, you can say that it was the Dark Souls or Elden Ring of this world, this universe, which is hilarious to think about since, Elden Ring just came out yesterday. But to get back on topic, though, the game is incredibly hard, and because of how difficult it was, a lot of people, seeing how hard it was, went to, rave about it and say in reviews, like, it's a terrible game, it's the worst thing ever, it's not something that you should enjoy or play and all that. You got stuff like that, and thanks to just how hard the game was, the dwindling population of the game just pretty much hit a very all-time low. And our main character decided to stick with it for 11 years until it was finally beat. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But the point is thanks to the game being beat, it kind of transferred into the real world, and so the game became reality itself. The Tower of Trials, actually started to exist in the real world. And so because of this, the MC tries to figure out what he can do to get ahead, level up, etc. And he comes in contact with a guy that he knows from his personal life that wasn't affiliated with the game whatsoever. And I mean, he was, but not necessarily. Like, it's just a colleague at work, pretty much. And to give some clarification, you have it to where this guy that, our MC meets, he's someone that has ruined a lot of people's lives. For instance, he has absolutely sued a lot of people that has been close to our MC and made their entire business kind of burnt to the very ground. So, he is someone that has destroyed people's lives, made them have to lose their jobs, etc. So there's a lot of animosity that our main character has with this individual that's introduced around chapter 2, chapter 3. And so before the actual event really starts to take place, before the world really shifts and changes and you're having to do whatever you can to level, he decides to get back at the guy and he slams him with a headbutt and knocks one of the man's teeth out. Which instantly, when I saw that, I was like, holy crap, that's already a dark direction. But then the next chapter after that, he lets the guy die. He legitimately just lets him die to get what he wants. And this, when I read that, instantly told me what type of series I was getting into. Because typically when you have stories like this, yeah, you'll have an MC that's more on the darker side, morally gray, but I mean, he will not let people die. He'll punish them, he'll allow them to go through a lot of horrible things, but usually the MC saves people. That's typically what you get from these type of stories. And, the only people that are really being, like, kind of, like, really, really bad or evil, etc., is just the main antagonist of an individual arc. That's what you usually get. And so, when you look at what our MC did to someone, before the world really shifted and changed, it lets you know that this is not your run-of-the-mill same everyday MC. He's probably going to be vastly different than normal, which instantly I'm engaged already. I love that type of stuff. I love morally gray characters that aren't necessarily goody-goody two-shoes and are willing to do what they must do to get what must be done. And, even do things for own personal gain or evil because, it's fascinating to see a character like that in a storytelling perspective. It's why I like Ainz from Overlord so much, because he is the villain of the story, even though he is our protagonist. And normally, someone of Ainz' position like Overlord, he would be the antagonist. He would be the main bad guy you would fight at the end of the story. But that's obviously not the case. And that's kind of why I like this so far, is that this series has an MC that is willing to just let people die, which is just messed up to think about. So I already am engaged with it, but let's dive a little bit deeper. So what is Max Level Newbie actually about? So as you've already heard me talking about, the world is becoming pretty much a part of the game, or the game is now manifesting in the real world. And the reason for this stems to what I talked about earlier. Our main character beat Tower of Trials, and then the tower appeared around the world for people to be able to participate in it. Now, if this world is not, let's say, or this tower is not defeated within a given set of time, the world or humanity itself will cease to exist. So there is a time limit. You have a certain amount of time to be able to achieve the conclusion. So you can already imagine how difficult this will be, because if it really is the game manifested in real life, you already have that level of actual people dying, but also the difficulty of it, because the reason why people stopped playing the game and why it wasn't beat for 11 years was because it was just too freaking difficult. So you can imagine, because of that, there's going to be so many people that are just going to die left and right, or not even give it an attempt if they have played the game, because it's just that freaking hard. So that's interesting. That's an interesting route the story is going. But obviously, there is a lot more. So when it comes to the main character, he is someone that is the first person to clear the game, the original game, before it manifested. And I find this very interesting because it's never actually stated that the game's population was pretty much 0 and our MC was the only one that played it. It never stated that within the story. So pretty much, for all we can assume, there's probably been a lot of players that's been actively playing alongside of our MC and beating the game, or almost beating the game, maybe getting to the final floor, floor 50, to be able to, beat the game. And maybe no one's ever been able to beat the final boss, but there's probably countless other people that managed to make it that far, but our MC was one that was able to finally obtain that record of beating it. And this kind of goes along with real life. When it comes to hard and difficult games, I doubt because something is difficult and hard that everybody, the whole population, would give up on it and only one individual would be playing it. Because, let's just keep it real, we have people doing crazy things nowadays with gaming. You have speed runs, you have things that, people absolutely royally break games to the point you're like, holy crap, and beat them in such a way you never thought was possible. So you would definitely know there would be a niche group that'd be interested in Tower of Trials to see if anyone can beat it. It would definitely attract a lot of people, regardless of how bad the game actually is in general, or if people just don't like it. People would be fascinated to see the game finally, beat. So when you actually look at what was being introduced, I doubt our MC is the only one. There's probably other people that have potentially almost come close to beating it, or maybe could have beaten it but didn't want to beat it. There's a lot of things to really factor into it. But another thing is that our MC was recording all of his fights. He has videos, apparently, that he was going to upload online, and he has the video of the final boss that he beat, the ending of the game. This is going to be a huge part of the story when people start questioning him and people around him, like, what do we need to do? What's the upcoming boss? How do we prepare? What resistances do we need? What armor do we need? You can already see those questions happening. People asking everyone else around them, like, what do we need to do next? So I really think that the videos that the MC has is going to play a huge part, and there's multiple directions that the story currently can go, and let's discuss that. Since the series is in its very early stages, for instance, only 4 chapters, we don't really know what direction it wants to go. It can go down the typical power fantasy route and just have it to where the MC is the only spotlight. Personally, as someone that's read a lot of these stories, I would love to see more support characters and side characters and stuff actually get more of a spotlight, kind of like how One Punch Man does its story. We all know Saitama in One Punch Man is ridiculously OP. He's able to pretty much one-punch anything, and because of that, his fights may be cool, but there is not enough content there to really make something crazy, crazy good. And so you have it to where you have the writer throw in side characters, other heroes with their struggles against other villains, minor villains, etc., and that leads to really interesting situations. I hope that this series, Max Level Newbie, goes down that route to actually form a group, a party, and progress with them. I would love more stories like that. That is something that I really wish Solo Leveling had, and I hope this series actually gets. Speaking of Solo Leveling, the artwork of the series is very reminiscent of Solo Leveling. I don't know if it's someone that is inspired by Solo Leveling or not, but the artwork is very reminiscent of Solo Leveling. You cannot even deny it when you look at the actual chapters. It really does look similar, and I do hope that this series, does really well. I think that there's a lot of potential here, and as I always say when it comes to these type of stories, we have all seen time and time again that there is a lot of stories of isekai, there's a lot of stories of virtual reality becoming real life, etc. We have seen these stories so many times, but as I've always said, it comes down to the execution. It comes down to how they're written, how they're told, and even how the cliches are used if it is a good series. And so far, Max Level Newbie is doing everything right. It has a lot of potential and a lot of setup to be good, and so give it a few more chapters and it probably will have a really, really good story on its hands. But I guess I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you're interested in Max Level Newbie, check it out. I have a link in the description. Click on it and it'll take you straight to the series to read. But with that, guys, be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.